EDIFY means to enlighten, encourage, and uplift individuals, intellectually, morally, and spiritually. That's exactly what our EDIFY podcast guests do, as they share practical wisdom on living our faith in public. I'm Mary FioRito. Thank you for joining us today. Welcome to the EDIFY Podcast. Our guest today is Kristan Hawkins, the president of Students for Life of America, Students Life Action, and the host of the podcast, Explicitly Pro-Life. Welcome, Kristan. Thank you for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Well, a momentous couple of days we've had here. Let me start by the question I think everybody's asking. Where were you when you heard the news?
I was at the Supreme Court, and I actually had the honor of, I don't remember doing this, but our vice president had her phone out. We kept refreshing. We had students out there. We were leading the crowd in some chants, and she said, "It's out." And she handed me her phone, and I told everyone to stop talking. And the protesters on the pro-abortion side of the fence and the pro-lifers all stopped talking. And I started to read the decision in front of the Supreme Court. And so you will see on video footage me get through half of it when the cheers and shouts for joy erupt. The media then descended. They were already surrounding us, but they descended. I had a podium in front of me and two security guards around me who had stopped us from getting completely squashed as the media began snapping pictures and getting video of the celebrations that ensued.
That's a far more dramatic moment than I had sitting on my laptop watching SCOTUS blog, which is what we were all doing, which is really a terrific, and I have to say fairly unbiased source for it's for real geeks who are real geeks about constitutional law decisions, and a lot of former court clerks, both at the federal level and the state level, follow it. So when they added Friday as an additional decision day, I started to get a little bit nervous, though everybody's money was on Monday the 27th. Everyone's, including, I have a friend who clerked for Scalia and a friend who clerked for Ginsburg, actually, and a friend who clerked for Alito, and one who clerked for Roberts. And all of them said they thought it would come at the end of the term, that they did not think they would let it go early. But then when I saw the Friday date had been added, I got a little bit nervous. And I just had a very strong feeling Thursday night. A friend of mine who's also a lawyer in DC texted me and said, "Do you think it's going to be tomorrow?" And I just had you just get these little feelings in your spirit. Yeah. And I said, you know what? I didn't think so initially, but now I'm starting to think so. And then I saw the headline move across the screen, "We have Dobbs." And I let out a screech, and then I saw 6-3. Mm-hmm. And then I actually started to cry. When I saw 6-3, I started to cry, and I thought, this is unbelievable. Now the 6-3 decision is a little bit muted in terms of its impact, because the Chief Justice decided with the court only on the issue of whether or not Mississippi could maintain its 15-week ban. So just for listeners who aren't familiar with the case that brought Dobbs to the Supreme Court, was the Mississippi Gestational Act, which prohibited abortion after 15 weeks, after about the fourth month of pregnancy, about 3 weeks past where most of the Western world restricts abortion. So most of the Western world draws it at about the 12-week line, except for us and about 6 other countries. So I thought that the Chief Justice had also joined with majority in overturning Roe and Casey, but that was not the case. So it's kind of like a 5-1-3 decision instead of actually being a 6-3 decision. So, but still, a win is a win, right? And just everyone completely overjoyed. Although, how do you think, Kristan, the leaked draft opinion impacted the feelings and the reaction to the actual opinion being handed down?
Obviously, I think the leaked draft opinion, it was leaked by a liberal in the court, which we still don't know their name. I can guarantee you if it was a conservative, we would already have the name of the person had already been disbarred. But the intentionality behind leaking the draft opinion was really to set off a firestorm across America amongst liberals, amongst the pro-abortion movement. I would say it actually backfired on them because, if anyone who cares about the future of our nation can very much see how much this has damaged our country. Pro-life groups, conservative groups instantly saw fundraising boosts, saw a lot of press coverage. I mean, I think we received Students for Life more than $30 million in earned media just in May alone, in which we know anytime we get on TV or, we have the ability, and the mainstream media gives us the ability to explain our positions, we change minds. And so I actually think it countered what they were going to do. I also think it got people in America used to the idea that we were going to be a post-Roe era sooner than the election, because the Democrats and the liberals in Washington have been very clear that they want to use this issue as an election issue. President Biden, a couple hours after the decision came down, literally went and delivered a stump speech. And so to me, I actually think it helps us, because now for a month or 2 months now, since it's the end of June, people in America have gotten used to the idea that abortion isn't going to be available in every state, or in some states it's not going to be available at all. And that's actually what we need, because if you look back when Texas passed their Heartbeat Act last year, there were, we were there, our students were there, we were testifying, one of our alumni introduced the bill. We worked with the Senate very closely to get that piece of legislation through. We were there in the protests all summer. And then it finally went into effect September 1st. There was all this fear mongering, but then life went on in Texas. Since September 1st, 65% of abortions have been illegal in the state of Texas. And surprise, surprise, women are still graduating college at higher rates than men. Women are still advancing in their jobs. I was in Texas for 6 weeks this spring, and I had yet to see a dead woman in a back alley from a self-induced abortion wound. Yet that's what we were told. So I actually think the more Americans get used to this idea that no, you can't just pay someone to end the life of a human being simply because they're inconvenient to you, the better off we'll be, and the more we'll see movement shift to our side.
Right. Well, I remember when the draft opinion came out, because I listened very carefully to the oral arguments, and I spoke at a rally here in Chicago, I think 2 or 3 hours right after the oral arguments were finished. And I said in front of all the media with no hesitation, Roe is gone. It was clear from oral arguments that there were at least 5, if not 6 votes on the court to overturn Roe. It was clear that was done. And all, the abortion groups all knew this. So when the leaked draft came out, I thought that was a lot of sort of, scheduled theater, if you will. They knew that's how it was going to go. It was crystal clear. The afternoon of December 1st, 2020.
Well, if you heard the oral argument.
Yeah, it was overturned. It was
done that day, the oral argument. The abortion movement, it was like the lawyer woke up that day and someone said, guess what? You get to defend Roe versus Wade. Like, I could have done a better job defending Roe versus Wade because I took one con law class in college. They did such a terrible job. I was shocked.
Although I have to say, I give her credit. She was holding her own with them, because she was really, Thomas really had her on the hot seat for a while there, and he had 2 very firm and direct lines of questioning. And she stumbled, I think, where she kind of gave them what they were looking for, is that she couldn't point to a specific place where the right to private killing was located in the Constitution. She couldn't find that, right? Mm-hmm. And she was just kind of everywhere, right? That's what but I thought the kind of her stumbling over Justice Amy Coney Barrett's questions about the safe haven laws, which you articulate so beautifully in the EDIFY episode, where the Roe court didn't focus as much on the inconveniences of pregnancy as they did what they called the burden of parenting, right? And so when you have every state in the nation, which allows you, no questions asked, no legal ramifications whatsoever, to leave a child in a safe spot and the child will not go into the foster care system. They will immediately go into the pool of children who are available for adoption. And that's another issue we can get, all these poor children in foster care is often a trope that's thrown at us. But, it's interesting to see that she did as well as I think she could have, but still, because their arguments aren't grounded in the truth, she didn't prevail. I mean, I think that's what we're getting to, is that she didn't prevail because the pro-abortion arguments aren't good arguments.
That's right.
Now we all woke up in a post-Roe world this morning. Kristan, what do you see as the future for students of life in America? Will what you do on campuses change? Will the way you train the students who work with you train or change rather? What do you see going forward as the path for you to further change hearts and minds on abortion?
Sure. Well, when we launched Students for Life 16 years ago, we launched our organization as a post-Roe organization. In fact, I remember very clearly, very early on, after launching Students for Life, explaining this to a group of supporters in Manhattan and being told, you might want to stop saying you're a post-Roe organization or that Roe versus Wade is going to be reversed, because you just sound too naive, too unbelievable. So everything that we have done in the past 16 years since launching Students for Life and now Students for Life Action has been for this moment. And that is why we've organized on college campuses, why we have 1,300 chapters, why we've trained 150,000 young people. But now, as we face a post-Roe era, we know we have to go back to our campuses. We've been fortifying our students. We've hired, a general counsel to help us deal with all of the discrimination and vandalization cases that we've seen increase in the past couple of years. And now we know for certain it will happen this fall. We're very much focused on the offense and a defensive fight. So offensively, we are very concerned about the fact that 73% of our neighbors do not know where nonviolent resources are located. Students for Life's campaign for abortion-free cities has been door knocking for the past year and a half in 20 cities in neighborhoods surrounding abortion facilities across the country. And we've knocked about 120,000 doors, and 73% of the folks we talk to, the neighbors in neighborhoods surrounding abortion facilities, do not know about the 3,000 pregnancy resource centers and more than 400 maternity homes that exist in our country. I think this is a major problem for our movement, because for 50 years we've been starting, supporting, sustaining this entire social safety network where no woman stands alone, but she doesn't know that. So we're launching, we have our Standing With You initiative, where girls, young women, families across the country can go, put in their zip code, find public and private sources of support through all kinds of different, to address all kinds of different needs. They can be connected to Heartbeat International via chat right there on our site, or Human Coalition to answer the phone call. We're kind of expanding that more. On Sunday, August 28th, we're hosting what's called Standing With Her National Sunday. We'll be doing a national simulcast with Dr. Alveda King, televangelist Pastor Andrew Womnack, and many other leaders, U.S. Senator James Langford, really to give the church and those within the church, what I'm kind of deeming like the virtual tool belt of sorts of, this is a problem that we as a church we can solve, because we have women in our churches and men who are hurting from past abortions. We know from Guttmacher's own stats and other stats that half of all women who seek abortion have said they've gone to church at least once in the past month. But yet when you ask the church why they haven't stood up, it's often because they feel ill-equipped, or that we've all heard there's no resources and pro-lifers only cared. And so I want to be able to equip folks with, here's where you go, supportafterabortion.org if you know someone hurting from abortion, or someone who's taken the first chemical abortion pill, abortionpillreversal.org, or standingwithyou.org, or Option Line. We want to be able to give folks those tools. So that's kind of our offensive fight that we see shaping up, and that we have been spending, six-figure campaigns in these cities advertising the nonviolent resources that exist.
Just to let people know.
Yes, just to let people know.
Yeah, you have a choice. And so I know primarily your work is on college campuses. And Kristan, talk a little bit about the statistics for abortion among college students, particularly sort of, white middle-class college girls, because what we often hear is that the vast majority of abortions are done on, women of color who live in poverty, who already have one child. But talk a little bit about the abortion statistics on the college campuses, and how those girls are particularly vulnerable to the culture of death and to the abortion industry.
Sure. Well, depending on the statistics, you'll see, you can definitely tell that the majority of abortions are committed on women in their college age years. Some states, you'll see the majority of abortions are being committed on women late in their 20s now. So it definitely depends, but it's definitely in that 20s area. And we really have seen, since we launched Students for Life, a decrease in teen abortions because the teen pregnancy rate has actually declined. The rate of teens having sex has actually declined. It might have something to do with the fact that we continue to be in an ST epidemic. But yeah, we definitely see that this is the generation, this is the time in someone's life where they are being directly targeted and marketed to by the abortion industry when they're on their phones and TikTok, when they're, when they're on campus, or if they're on a bus, if they're on, Google, they're getting ads for the abortion industry. And the abortion industry has probably already introduced themselves to them when they were in school, middle school or high school, in the form of, being their sex education counselors and teachers. Right. And so that's something that we're keenly aware of. And that's something that we've been asking our movement that, we've got to think of a way and we've got to be, innovative in how to really interrupt that, create a customer business model that Planned Parenthood has developed and is deploying in many cities across our country.
Well, so for the average college student who does find herself pregnant and is vulnerable, as you say, because of marketing initiatives on behalf of the abortion industry that have started probably when she was in junior high, what are the most motivating factors? Or do you even have sort of a ranking, if you will, of motivating factors that help her to understand, help her to feel empowered to choose life for her child? Because it's got to be very different, right? For a woman who is in college, for whom, career plans or graduation plans may very well be delayed, not deterred, but delayed. How do you respond to those very specific arguments with this population with whom you work?
Well, we believe that no woman should have to be forced to choose between her education, her future career goals, and the life of her child. That is why when you, if you would follow a Students for Life group around on campus, you would see they'd spend half their time talking to their peers about the violence of abortion, and the other half the time transforming their campus to create a space on campus to show women that they don't have to choose. And they're the ones who go and research, the policies that are on campus and placed on campus. They're the ones who are looking around saying there's no diaper changing stations or there's no lactation rooms. They're the ones who go from their student government and demand, policy changes for women who are pregnant to be allowed to remain in the dorm rooms, or who, report to us at Students for Life the Title IX violations that we know are occurring, so we can get those resolved. And that's the Students for Life group. That is not the pro-Planned Parenthood or pro-choice group on the campus, because they're quite frankly just not interested at all in having those conversations. And in some campuses, the Students for Life groups have attempted to host, roundtables where, abortion's off the list of topics, not going to talk about abortion, only going to talk about supporting women, pregnant mothers, and pregnant students on campus. And guess who never shows up? Guess who always has that empty chair? And so we're the ones who are providing those alternative resources. I've been getting a lot of questions in the press about, well, what specific policies do you promote? If you're really pro-life, you would be for universal health care. You'd be for whatever XYZ Democratic proposal that comes out. And, I think that there's a lot of merit in some of these proposals, and we need to have good policy discussions. But I don't think we're at a place to even have those policy discussions yet until we all can agree to stop killing human children simply because they may be inconvenient.
Right. Well, Nancy Pelosi said in her remarks after the decision came out that American women today have less freedom than their mothers. What's your response to that? And what do you think that pro-choice feminists today are missing about what the founding feminists would have told us about what abortion does to the feminist cause?
Sure. I actually recorded a video. I was so irate after watching Nancy Pelosi's response. I recorded a short little reel of my honest reactions to her. That question about less rights, I would say less rights to do what, Nancy? Tell me what we can't do. Because I watched that entire, that little press conference stunt that she had twice. And she never wanted to talk about abortion or describe abortion. She kept using the word reproductive rights or women's empowerment.
Or healthcare, right?
Or healthcare. Right. Abortion is the opposite of empowerment. In fact, abortion tells women that she can't, that unless she has access to a special surgery with taxpayer funds, she'll never be equal to man. Which does the very opposite of what the first wave feminists, the suffragists envisioned for women across the nation. They actually thought women should be able to, choose their own career paths and also be mothers and also be, wives. They didn't think it had to be either or. That's why it's been so shocking to, honestly, I was watching a CNN clip where the Yelp chief diversity officer was on TV talking about how progressive and woke Yelp is because they're now going to pay their employees money to go across state lines and have abortions if they live in these terrible red states that are protecting women and children from the predatory abortion facilities. They're going to give them travel money to go and abort children. And she acted like this was so progressive of her. First, the woman must never have actually read the actual Yelp reviews for abortion facilities on their own website. Second of all,
that's a very good point.
I mean, it was so hypocritical to watch this interview today. I was getting ready to go live on CNN and I was like screaming in the box at the CNN headquarters. The second thing that was so clear about this is better for corporations. It is better for a corporation to give her a couple $100 to kill her child than to have to pay for maternity leave, then to have to accommodate her as she comes back into the workforce. Maybe she wants to come back part-time, or maybe she comes back 30 hours a week. Or what if she needs to, I don't know, breastfeed in the office and pump. And then you have to figure out, where is she going to breastfeed in the office? Where is she going to store the milk? There's as someone who employs mostly young women of childbearing age, I have nearly 100 employees. I will tell you for myself, it is a real commitment in the workplace to accommodate young parents. It's not easy. And you have to make accommodations, especially in, what we do at Students for Life. I can't hire a temp worker to easily come in and replace one of my employees who's out on maternity leave. We all as a team have to pitch in and cover for that employee.
Right.
And so we've made a lot of different accommodations to try to adjust the schedules. But these are corporations that are going out there and saying they're so woke because they're telling her, just kill your baby.
Pregnancy discrimination is a real thing. I was one of 240 signatories on one of the amicus briefs before the court in Dobbs from professional women, all of us with JDs or PhDs or MDs, that went through this reliance interest on abortion that the court relied upon in the Casey decision, and said, no, women do not need to kill unborn children to be equal. But secondly, one of the great ironies I found was that this very same week that these lawsuits were announced against Amazon for pregnancy discrimination, they simultaneously offered the $4,000 travel benefit, to go to another state and have an abortion. And I thought, oh boy, but the testimonies in these lawsuits from their pregnant employees claim that Amazon treats them terribly. Of course, it's cheaper to give them $4,000 to have an abortion than it is to treat them fairly. So it's going to be interesting to see how these pregnancy discrimination suits at Amazon turn out. But, well, from your perspective, and again, you're working largely with students and really young people, what's next for Students for Life now that we are in a post-Dobbs world?
Well, as I mentioned, we're going on this offensive battle to ensure no woman stands alone in a post-Roe America. The defensive battle that we're going to be waging, and we've been waging for about 3 years now, is fighting against the proliferation of these dangerous chemical abortion pills that not only do they lead in the death of a preborn child, but lead to injury, infertility, and death of mothers. This is something we've been fighting for years in California. This coming January, every state university in California will be mandated to dispense chemical abortion pills on campus, turning all those state universities into abortion facilities. This is legislation they want to see sweep the nation. We've already seen from interviews from chemical abortion manufacturers that they've dramatically increased production because they want to see these drugs over the counter by end of the year. The whole abortion is between a woman or doctor mantra is absolutely gone. They use the crisis of COVID to pressure and convince the FDA to drop, and the FDA was more than willing because it's the Biden FDA, willing to drop their REMS, the risk evaluation mitigation strategies, because they said, well, it's too risky for women to have to go in and have to, confirm she's actually pregnant, or to get an ultrasound, confirm she's not experiencing a life-threatening ectopic pregnancy. That's too risky because of COVID. Therefore, we want to be able to prescribe these drugs without her ever going to a doctor to get a blood test to make sure she's not, Rh negative. If she's Rh negative and she takes these drugs and she doesn't get a Rogan shot, she may never be able to carry another child successfully to term again. Yet the FDA dropped all the REMS and said it's safe. It's just safe. And this was the same time when the FDA was pulling back, for example, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. Same day they issued a letter saying they're dropping the REMS. They pulled the Johnson & Johnson vaccine off the market because a woman had tragically died from their vaccine. And we know that women have died for these chemical abortion pills. Now, we don't have a national abortion reporting law, which is something that we can't get, passed because the abortion industry refuses to actually have to report pregnancy outcomes, report complications. So we don't have all of the facts here, but we know these drugs are extremely dangerous. And yet the Biden administration, the entire abortion industry now thinks that they have a workaround to, Roe falling. So the thought is that in the red states, the states that move to heavily restrict abortion or prohibit abortions altogether, women will be able to just go to their phones, order these chemical abortion drugs from overseas or from a state that allows abortion, and she can still have her abortion. This is going to result in the deaths of women.
Yep, you're absolutely right. And it doesn't even begin to take into consideration the emotional trauma caused to women.
Absolutely. She literally returns to the scene of the crime every single day.
Whereas with surgical abortions, of course, the woman's not the moral agent, right? But I am on the board of a pregnancy center and maternity home, and we had one of our clients who actually gave public testimony about this, and she wound up miscarrying her baby's remains at home. She passed the baby's remains on the toilet. And the way she talks is she said, and then I stood up and I flushed the toilet. I flushed my child down the toilet. And she said,
that's what she's told to do
every day of my life. And I can barely tell that story without crying. And this woman has probably told it 200 times now because she tells it as part of her personal testimony. And you see the psychological trauma that's going to be, rent on these women for years to come. But God bless you, Kristan, and thank you for all that you are doing for Students for Life. We are so blessed that you were with us here at EDIFY. Thank you so much for sharing so much of your time with us, and good luck to you in the years ahead. It's going to be, buckle up, it's going to be a bumpy road, but we're all in it together.
That's right. Thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. Thank you for listening. To make it easier for you to listen to future EDIFY Podcast episodes, please make sure you subscribe over at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Thank you.